contest begin. We can have a mic check, please.
Elevate your voice. Elevate your voice.
Thank you, that is working. Please join me in welcoming Jody Dontje. What happened? What happened, Jody Dontje?
It was my 27th birthday. My partner, Melvin, gifted me an amazing race challenge. Hiking with a heavy backpack, treasure hunting across the city, before ending up at the beach. On the beach, Melvin gave me an envelope. Oh, what do you think it is? A surprise lunch? A surprise cruise? A surprise proposal? You can either do 500 burpees or swim out to the yellow marker. Not very romantic. Melvin saw my face go from excitement to terror. Babe, what happened? Are you kidding me, Melvin? 500 burpees and I'm afraid of the ocean. He didn't know that I was terrified of deep water. The next year, another birthday, another beach, but this time in Bali. No surprise envelopes, no threat of burpees, no swimming. It was just me, Melvin, and the warm sand between our toes. A lot more romantic this year. Then a friendly fisherman approached us. 50% off private boat trip. We go snorkeling. Melvin's face lit up, and then he saw my face. Does this look like a face that wants to go snorkeling? No thanks. As the man walked away, I could feel Melvin's disappointment. He was probably thinking, why did I bring Jody here? I felt terrible. Then I saw her, a little girl playing in the ocean, chasing the waves, overflowing with joy, completely fearless. I used to love playing in the waves. I used to overflow with joy, with no fear. Little Jody had to be carried out of the ocean. She didn't want to leave. What happened? Then, like a tidal wave, all the memories came rushing back. All the times that my joy turned into fear. The time I was swarmed by stingrays. The time a wave pulled me under and I nearly drowned. The time I belly flopped in front of the whole school and everyone laughed. But now I couldn't help but wonder, what joy have I blocked myself from to avoid facing this fear? How many times have I sat on the shore of life and not jumped into something? My fear of visiting family in China, heights, wearing what I want to. What happened? Seeing that little girl play fearlessly in the waves, I wondered, what would my inner child want right now? She'd want to go snorkeling. I grabbed Melvin's arm. Melvin, we're taking little Jody snorkeling. Yes! But little who? Yeah, he has no idea who I'm talking about. It was hard getting on that boat, to see the safety of the shore slip away. And when the boat stopped, I was dripping in fear. I clung to the edge of the boat, the edge between holding on to safety and facing my fear. So I asked myself again, what does little Jody want? What do you think she wants? She wants to play. 3, 2, 1. She jumped, and I jumped with her. And a whole new world splashed open. A world of colour, fun, play. The little child inside me squealed with joy, and as the fishes swam around me, I felt like I had come home. Home to my authentic self, home to little Jody. And after that adventure, a wave of change washed over me. Instead of what happened, it became what happens when I listen to my inner child. And when fear rose, because it does, I'd ask myself, what does little Jody want? Well, she wanted me to visit my family in China for the first time. She wanted me to overcome my fear of heights, so I completed the highest obstacle course in Australia. And she even wanted me to stop wearing suits when I speak and start wearing dresses. Do you think little Jody is happy? That little girl in Bali reminded me that when we let our inner child free, we can play in an ocean of opportunity instead of sit on the shore and laugh. Fear can quickly disconnect you from joy, but only if you let it. You have the power to change what happened into what happens when you listen to your inner child. Is there a job that you would rather play in? A relationship you want to dive into? An experience the child inside you is craving? If you ever find yourself sitting on the shore in life, ask yourself, what does little me want? And if you listen, a colourful new world will open. And what will happen is you will come home to you. 3, 2, 1. Jump in. Contest chair.
Please join me in welcoming Jackson Green. The golden ticket. The golden ticket. Jackson Green.
Finally, I've won the golden tickets! Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters and guests, have you ever chased a dream? Have you ever pursued a goal to the ends of the earth, only to discover something far more valuable? I have a confession to make, and this is going to come as a massive shock, but I love chocolate. In the year 2004, something revolutionary happened. Nestle came up with a special competition, a chocolate competition, based on the classic film Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. 5 golden tickets were enclosed within chocolate bars all over Victoria, with the winners being entitled to a free tour of Universal Studios' Chocolate Factory. For a dessert lover such as myself, having this opportunity pass me by was simply out of the question. I got together with my cousin and childhood best friend Mikey and shared the good news. We turned to each other, smiled and said, "We're going to win a golden ticket." Later that day, we sat down together and crunched some numbers. Right, there's 6 million Victorians, there's 5 golden tickets, and there's 2 of us. How hard could it be? We knew we didn't have a second to waste, so we brought in the big guns right from the start, our parents. And we pleaded for as much pocket money as they could afford. And then we set off into the suburbs with a suitcase filled with coins. We even risked our lives going to one of the most dangerous, wicked and sinister places known to man, Frankston. But despite our best efforts and despite purchasing as many chocolate bars as 2 10-year-olds could possibly carry, and then some, we were unable to secure that elusive golden ticket. One by one, the winners started to emerge until there was only one ticket remaining. On the 21st of April 2004, the final winner was announced. His name was Jackson Thompson, that is. Who names a boy Jackson Thompson? That's child abuse. With a name like that, I'm glad he won. 3 weeks later, I came home from school, still mourning the loss of this priceless golden ticket. My mother pulled me aside and uttered the dreaded words, "Jackson, we need to talk." "Yes, Mother, I'm aware that I have 100 uneaten chocolate bars in the fridge. I promise you I'll get to them." At this moment, tears began to pour down her face. "What's wrong, Mother?" "We need to talk about your cousin Mikey. He's very sick. He's been taken to hospital and diagnosed with a rare form of leukemia, and he might not survive." My heart sunk upon hearing these words. My best friend was in the fight of his life, and he might not survive. We went to visit Mikey the next day, and the boy who was normally so filled with life lay there, motionless, in agony and struggling to breathe. I'll never forget the feeling of shock and horror that came over me after seeing my best friend in this state. 3 surgeries later, and Mikey was showing minimal signs of improvement. The doctors came over and said, "We don't know when or if Mikey will be able to come home." The next few days and weeks felt like an eternity, as it was becoming increasingly more likely that Mikey was about to be ripped away from us at the age of 10. 1 month went by, and we went to visit Mikey once again. But there was something different about Mikey. There was a touch of colour in his eyes, and that cheeky smile had started to come back. To our amazement, he was able to walk up and back and around his hospital room. There was a renewed sense of optimism. Could he beat this? 2 weeks later, and after his 7th round of surgery, the doctors rushed over to us. "We've got an update on Mikey. His leukemia's gone into remission. He's expected to make a full recovery. Mikey is coming home." We leapt for joy, and I'll always remember the euphoria and relief that poured over us upon hearing these words. Mikey now lives a healthy, enjoyable, and productive life, and he's happily married to a much older and much richer woman. And I'm not. But this experience showed me that we all have a golden ticket. It's the golden ticket of life. This one does have an expiry date. We don't know when that time will come. So what we can do is make the most of every precious second with our friends, our families, and our loved ones, so that when we shuffle off this mortal coil, we can look back and say, my golden ticket was worth living. Contest chair.
Please join me in welcoming Wendy Teasdale-Smith. 11 minutes. 11 minutes, Wendy Teasdale-Smith.
Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters and guests, do you remember when, if you went to a football game, either you could as a spectator or as an opponent call the other guy any racist name you wanted? You could call him, suggest he was a different sexuality than yours. You could suggest his mother wasn't married. Always out there. Do you remember when sexual harassment policies first came in? One of my staff members said, I don't need a sexual harassment policy, Wendy. I just do it. Do you remember when we first started talking about child sexual abuse? Because for a long time we didn't talk about it at all. And what happened was, it caused most of us to look away. We thought it's unbearable, it's horrible, it's unspeakable. And by doing so, we stopping the pedophiles from doing their evil trade. We are at a tipping point, my friends, in Australia at the moment. I would like to add to this list of 3, do you remember when? I would like to add to that, do you remember when we had on average 1 woman die a week in Australia from domestic violence? Do you remember when Nicky Winmar pulled up his top at the football, pointed to his brown chest and yelled out to the crowd that had been harassing him all game, I'm black and I'm proud? I think we had a tipping point like that just recently when we had 4 women die in Australia at the hands of current or former partners. We can choose as a society to go that way, to the stage where it's rare, if not unheard of us, for women to die from domestic violence. Or we can continue turning our heads away in shame and trying to ignore it. I say it's a tipping point because our Prime Minister stood up and said, it's a national disgrace. The footballers got in a circle at the beginning of the football game for a minute's silence to say, we are against men treating women this way, and it is usually men. We had a situation where celebrities started saying, these guys are killing women they supposedly love. Like, what is it with that? It is a time of tipping point where we can choose to move forward. Now, I believe very much that unless we get Australian men, like the men in this room, to start speaking out and making some noise and becoming advocates to help us turn this domestic violence around, I believe we'll never make a big difference. Because up until now, before our Prime Minister spoke, before other people started speaking out, it was quite rare to have men speak out. But things have changed now, and I would like you to get on board with that. Now, this doesn't mean you need to go up into people's faces and yell at them about something around domestic violence. Get in their faces. We tried that with feminism a few years ago, and it didn't work out so well for us. It does mean that you do take opportunities in everyday life to call out things that are essentially about disrespect towards women, because that's the seeds that groweth from the little boy to the man who will beat women. So when you hear someone say to a little girl who's crying because a boy hit her, whether the person saying it is female or male, it's because he likes you, he hits you, then go up and go, no, it's not. When you hear someone say it's because she was dressed a certain way that she got sexually assaulted, you can use your best Australian twang and go, mate, I don't care if it's Pamela Anderson standing there stark naked, unless she says, come to me and become my lover boy, I'm not going there. It's important that this happens in a variety of ways. When you hear people saying jokes about domestic violence, just say, mate, look, 4 women in a week, okay? These aren't funny anymore. As I said, it doesn't matter if it's men or women, we all need to stop reinforcing these essences that are the basis on which we develop a culture that says it's okay to live with domestic violence. Now, you might think it's pretty scary to do that, but I would like to call on a great expert, Winnie the Pooh, who said, you're smarter than you think you are and braver than you know. But I'm going to end with perhaps a better expert when I say Margaret Mead said, never doubt that anything other than a small group of thoughtful and committed people can change the world, because that's all that ever has. Thank you.
Please join me in welcoming Graham Manley. Your BS. Your BS, Graham Manley.
Thank you. Mr. Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, you're all full of BS. I've been walking around listening to you, and I know exactly just how full of BS you are. I'm talking about belief system. What did you think I was talking about? Yes. You know, the average person talks at about 120 to 150 words a minute. Now, my wife can do 250 a minute, and some of my Toastmaster Club members can speak underwater, and that's another story altogether. But in your brain, the voice inside your head is speaking at 1,500 words a minute. And what's it telling you? You're no good, you can't do that, you're not up to it. Don't bother, you're not the right body shape. Nah, just don't, just don't. And why does it do that, do you think? This'll surprise you. It does that because you've told it it can. You're giving it permission. You're not doing anything to stop it, are you? Let me give you an example. I listened to a Toastmaster speech at my club, and at the end of the speech, I go, "Hey, Joe, that was a great speech you gave tonight. I really enjoyed that." "Nah, I didn't like it. I forgot a bit, and I messed up the ending, and I didn't do a good conclusion. It wasn't that good." BS, man, BS. What do you think? How about this for a non-BS reply? "Hey, Joe, great speech you did tonight." "Thanks, Graham. I really enjoyed being out there on stage, looking at all the smiling faces. You know, people looked really interested in what I had to say, and that made me feel good. I can't wait to do my next speech." Good BS, isn't it? Isn't it? You know, people think, if I was going to get a job at one of the biggest and greatest places that my industry has to offer, would I even go for it? Would I put myself through an interview? Would I test myself and think, oh, you know, I'm not really good enough for that. They're such a big company, they'll give it to somebody else. I'm just wasting my time. BS. Go for it. Here's something the old BS hasn't considered. What if you got the job? What if you're now making twice as much as you were making? The worst thing that can happen is you don't get the job. That's something that the BS hasn't considered, isn't it? You've got to be in it to win it. The people who play Tats Lotto and complain, oh, you know, I never win. Well, look a bit deeper into it, and those are the same people that don't even buy a ticket. And you got to get one next week, it's 150 mil. Well, what can you do to change the BS? Well, you're in the right place. This is Toastmasters, people. And we love it, don't we? We're always encouraging people. Encouragement is one of our major strong points at Toastmasters. In fact, you could get up here and vomit, and we'd all clap. We'd all think that was great. Just try it at your next club meeting. You'll be so popular. It's true. We need to continue, as we do, to just keep encouraging people. Keep telling them that was a great speech, but maybe next time do this a little bit different. Can't wait to hear what you're going to say next time, John. Peter, that was fabulous. Great speech. But you know what? There's something we've got to do that's more important than that. We've got to be encouraging to ourselves. We've got to be able to say, when a thought comes, crikey, am I going to mess up this speech tonight? We've got to be able to say, no, I'm not listening to that voice inside my head. I'm replacing it with something else. Not only am I not going to mess up this speech tonight, it's going to be the best speech I've ever done. It's going to be so good that people are going to be saying, that is the best speech of the night. Give him the certificate. And that is the speech that he needs to go forward and do in the next round of competition, because it's so good. That's what you need to be thinking when you're giving that speech. Not rubbish like, oh God, I hope I forget some of it. What was it again? What comes after that paragraph? Ban it. Ban the BS. Listen, people, bad BS is responsible for a whole host of terrible things. Depression, suicide, missed opportunities, and horrible lives. People are just living them because they're listening to the rubbish in their head. Please, for your own sakes and for the sake of everybody you know, ban the BS and live your wonderful life. Mr. Contest Chair.
Please join me in welcoming Neal Raniga. Just like any other girl, Neal Raniga.
Part 1, the prologue. Dear Toastmasters guests, I am Neal. I was born in Australia into a traditional Indian family. We are part of a conservative society, and growing up, you just didn't hear about people being gay or queer in our culture. I, being gay, had to be that precedent. And today, I want to tell you all about what it has been like for me to be queer and to come out as such in a traditional family. Where should we begin? Well, I have a twin sister, and growing up, we were instilled with the idea of arranged marriages. My parents, their parents, and so on, they've all had arranged marriages, and we believed that we'd have no other choice. When we turned 18, my parents thought it was a good time to remind us that dating will not be an option, because there was a perfectly good plan already laid out for us, which was to marry a good Hindu man. Dare we even think of deviating from it? my sister, being cheeky, decided to ask, "Parentals, what would be worse if one of us ended up with a woman or a Muslim man?" This was said in jest, but my mother's nostrils had never flared wider. And she goes, "Do not speak of such things." And the topic was put to rest. But I then went into my 20s, closeted with the secret, dread at what was to come, because I was unable to reconcile my truth with the expectations of family and society. Part 2, the story. I ran away to London to live the life that I wanted to, and I did for 5 years. It afforded me a freedom I did not have here, but it came at a cost. A growing stew of secrecy, anxiety, and shame, stewing, churning in my stomach. And let me tell you that there are very few things in this world as detrimental as shame. I had to tell my family, especially now that I had someone special in my life. Speaking of which, do you remember the start of my story? What would be worse, a woman or a Muslim? Well, my partner was a Muslim woman. And so, of course, the memory of that conversation haunted me as I flew back to Australia to come out to my family. I was terrified. I was scared that my parents would disown me, which happens in our culture. I was afraid that my grandma would have a heart attack. And so, being afraid, naturally, I stalled. And I left this till the very last night before I had to go back to the UK. And I remember wondering, is this it? Is this going to be the last time that I'm going to see my family? And I had all my bags packed upstairs, ready to go in case I wasn't accepted and in case this didn't go well. We're at the dinner table, my parents are there, my grandma's there, and I choke. But I finally managed to blurt out, I have something to say. I'm not straight, I'm gay. And then ensued a deadly silence. The silence, but not the tension, was broken by my father's words. "Is this your idea of some sort of sick joke?" And no one responded. And as the truth started to settle in, my mother goes, "But I don't understand. What do you mean? This is a white person's problem. It doesn't happen to brown people." And so eventually the tears and the anger, it subsided, but then they turned to my grandma. We call her Nani, my traditional 80-year-old Nani, who was at the table but had been silent and forgotten up till then. And they go, "What are we going to do with this? What do we do with this problem?" And she contemplates for a moment and then goes in Gujarati, "To hun thyu, chokri jevu chokri che?" Which means, and then what? She's still a girl, just like any other girl? And the grace in which she took this in and responded left me in tears, because I had lived so many years in anxiety and fear and shame. And here was my Nani showcasing the wisdom of her years, rising above any tradition, culture, taboo. The elder generation showing the younger generation how to live with progressive values. The elder had spoken. Part 3, the prologue, the epilogue. Fast forward 7-8 years, and it hasn't been easy for me or for my parents either, for that matter. They are trying, my parents are trying, but eventually once in a while they'll say something like, "There is no need to go advertising this out on a brochure." I am not the flamboyant type to be putting this out on neon pink lights anyway, but I do have to say, oops, sorry father, I guess Toastmasters is my brochure today. because it does need to be told. There is a reason they call it Pride, with its vibrant rainbow colors. It is about being out, it is about being open, and it's about being proud. And so I'm going to conclude with what I've learned from this, which is, yes, be authentic. Give others the opportunity to accept you as you are. If you don't, you will have failed them even before they've had the chance to fail you. My Nani is still around, and she is championing me in my society, being that light of my life in dark places. But that's because I dared to be authentic, and this applies to everyone. No matter what your truth is, I dare you to be authentic and let others accept you just the way you are. Contest chair.
Please join me in welcoming Darryl O'Reilly. Men do cry, then inspire. Men do cry, then inspire. Darryl O'Reilly.
Contest chair, Toastmasters and guests. I'm proud of what I have achieved over the last 14 years. I'm proud I have amazing family, wonderful friends. And I'm also proud that I'm not afraid to cry, and I love to inspire. Now, most of you know me for my smiley faces. Now, these smiley faces remind me of the amazing times in my life, the light, and also the darkness. And I love to share these everywhere I go. And that's the best place I've ever seen that happen. However, my life has not always been like that. It was April 11, 2011, when my wife and I worked in different locations in prisons. And then all of a sudden, there was changes in her life. She was always never late, to becoming late. She would come home work early and put makeup on. Or she said she was going to meet some friends. Or so she told me. Why was she seeing another man? It's moments like those that those smiley faces picked me up, just like this one. And when I had to drive that 1 hour to work in the car alone, tears would just be running down my face. And on June the 7th, 2012, it felt like when in that car, it felt like these words were coming up behind me and telling me to stop. I pulled the car over as fast and hard as I could. I took out a piece of paper. I wrote them down on a piece of paper. I sat there looking at them with tears running down my cheeks. The spirit of life is when you give and share your spirit to another life. Why had these words been given to me? I had no idea. And then just a few days later, I was having dinner in a restaurant and a group of people walked in and sat in the far corner. For some reason, I was fixated on him. And also had the urge to write those words on a serviette to give to them. I had no idea why, I just needed to do it. I handed it to the waitress and she took it to them. And then I left. An hour later, I'm in the foyer and this lady comes running up to me and grabs hold of me and gives me the biggest hug. I'm sorry about the microphone. And she was crying. The fellow that was with her was crying. as though I'd be married the next day. Then and I started crying, and I didn't even know why. Then she begins to tell me that the music and the photographer had cancelled. She thought the best day in her life was falling apart. Until she read those 15 words. Isn't it amazing how we have the power of words, that when I was in my own misery and crying, I can also inspire someone? We all have the power of words. Don't be afraid to cry and then inspire. And then 2015, January 22. I raced home from work and I was late. And back then I was always running and late. Hurry here, hurry there. I was looking after my son, alone, and he has disabilities and epilepsy. He didn't want to come to indoor cricket this night. No, I'll stay home, Dad, it's all cool. I finished my game and there was a missed call on my phone. I ring it up and it's the emergency services. You need to get home, there's trouble. And I was sat in the hospital. Tubes coming out of everywhere. Heart monitor going beep, beep, beep. That's a good sign. I was trying to figure out what had happened. In my hurry, in my race of time, just to play cricket, I'd forgotten to check if he'd had his medications that morning. And he seizured. So bad he damaged the left temporal lobe of his brain. He now has no recollection of what was 5 minutes ago. I thought I'd let him down. What father does that? But you know what I learned? I learned to become a master of my calendar. I learned to time everything. If it was not inside my parameters, it didn't happen. And then a year ago, right before our contest, you see, I'd moved on and married. I met a lovely Chinese girl, and she came out to Australia. We connected so well. Right in the middle of COVID, lockdowns. Lockdowns were good. Really good. She taught me how to make dumplings. Don't know what you were thinking. But right before, 45 days out from our conference, she was over in Perth for 18 months helping her sister with her business. And she rings me up. And she said, I don't want to come home. And I want a divorce. For the first time in my life, I thought I wasn't enough. How'd that happen? How did I climb up? What I knew is I could cry, but I also had to inspire. This is a conference. This was all about Toastmasters coming together to inspire each other, to cry, laugh, inspire. And my friends, do not be afraid to share the power of your words, because you will change lives. Contest chair.
Please join me in welcoming Rohan Parrant. Our Unhelpful Stories. Our Unhelpful Stories, Rohan Parrant.
Thank you. Who here loves a good story? I know I do. We all grew up with stories. Our parents told us stories, we heard them from friends. We read them in books, and we watched them on the television. We even shared them with others as a way to connect. But the stories that I find the most important are the stories we tell ourselves. The stories where we're the main character. Stories where we're the ones in the limelight, because these stories shape our reality, and they give meaning to our experiences, and they impact every aspect of our lives. The question is, are our stories helping us or holding us back? Many of these stories can be just like handcuffs, like shackles, keeping you trapped, keeping you stuck. Others can lift you up and give you the confidence to move forward, pursuing your goals and chasing your wildest dreams. Many of these stories originated way, way back in childhood when we were quite small, and we carry them with us to the present moment, right to where we are now. And whether we like it or not, if we don't do something about them, they will impact our future. The decisions we make, the things we pursue, our goals, our limitations, and our capabilities. Many of these stories can become limiting beliefs. Things like, I'm unlovable, I'm not worthy, I don't belong, I'm a failure. The list goes on. And we gather evidence over time to support these unhelpful stories. We also have stories to let us off the hook. Stories that make it okay to hit the snooze button in the morning instead of getting up when we said we would. To not go to the gym because we don't feel like it. To manoeuvre our way into the McDonald's drive-thru on the way home from Toastmasters. I know I'm guilty of that one. We have many of these stories that follow us throughout our lives. There was this really interesting story that I liked, based on an experiment done by Dartmouth University. There was a number of participants that were told that they were going to be going into a job interview. But before they did, a makeup artist would apply scars to their face. So they each went into the interview, and when they came out, they reported similar things. He was looking directly at my scars. He made comments about them, all this innuendo. They all felt judged. They felt the stigma. Plot twist, there were no scars. They actually went in as their normal selves. But because they believed that they had these scars, they viewed the experience like a lens, and it shaped their reality. Now, the reason I love this experiment is because when I was a young man, I had a bunch of scars on my face. But I thought they made me look cool. I thought they suited my bad boy persona. Chicks dig scars anyway, or so I told myself. But that story did not hold me back, because I had a different story around scars. When I first wrote this speech, or presented it, I was talking about the fact that I had friends that had very strong stories, and it didn't matter what we told them, they didn't think that things were going to get better, and unfortunately, they're no longer with us. But today, I've decided that I'm going to share one of my unhelpful stories. It wasn't that long ago, back in COVID, that I actually convinced myself that I'd lost the ability to communicate, that I couldn't articulate my thoughts, people wouldn't take me seriously, I'd mumble through words, and I was pretty anxious about it. What made things worse was I had a long history of presenting, coaching, and being that social butterfly, being very confident. And people expected that from me, and I expected that from myself. I was hit with another blow not long after while training for a marathon. I found out that I actually needed a double hip replacement. My whole life had changed. I'd lost my confidence and my physical capabilities after being a lifelong athlete. What was I to do? Would I stay the victim of that story? How could I expect other people to overcome their challenges, to pursue their goals, to face adversity if I couldn't do it? So I was faced with that choice. Was I going to remain the victim? Was I going to hold on to that identity tightly and remain trapped and stuck like those handcuffs? Or could I do something about it? And I chose to throw myself into every situation I possibly could. Podcasts, keynotes, Toastmasters, the works. And here I am right now. And if I hadn't, it'd probably be a very different story. I imagine everyone in this room has their own story around public speaking. It's why they joined Toastmasters. And I imagine that most of you have hopefully changed that. You've changed the script. You have a story about me right now. You have a story about why you attend these events to volunteer your time. You have a story about why you give up one night every fortnight to be a part of Toastmasters. So if we have unhelpful stories, what can we do about them? We can gather evidence to support the opposite of these unhelpful stories. If you think you're a failure, count your small wins. If you think you can't do something, find a small step that you can. If you think the world is a dark place, find elements of kindness. There are always ways that we can change our stories. Every single person in this room is writing their own story right now. You are the writer, you are the narrator, and you are also the main character. I encourage you to make yourself the hero of your story, or the heroine. If you're not happy with your old story, get the pen, get the paper, and rewrite the story. Change the chapters. You can turn your sad story into an inspirational story. If you have scars, you can change the story about those scars. You are in control. You have the power to do so. So every single one of you in this room, I'd encourage you to reflect what stories have you got that are holding you back and which ones are moving you forward and lifting you up. You have the power to change them. Thank you.
Would you please welcome and congratulate in third place, Neal Raniga. In second place, would you please welcome and congratulate Darryl O'Reilly. At the camera.
Smile, guys, a big smile. I'll give you a big smile.
Big drum roll. Would you please welcome in first place for District 73's 2024 International Speech Contest, please welcome Jody Dontje. There's a lot of hugging going on over there. Congratulations, well done.
Thank you.
Okay, face the camera. Give me a big
Okay.
Okay. That's it. Both of you.
Beautiful.